this broke about 15 minutes before we began this podcast. Sidney Powell, the woolliest of the woolly conspiracy theorists, who is set to go to trial, pled guilty this morning. She pled guilty to these 6 misdemeanors, and she's basically becoming a state's witness. So tell us about this. I mean, Sidney Powell, I guess I have to say that on my bingo card, I did not have Sidney Powell being one of the first to roll over. What's going on?
Yeah, so the first thing that's going over is jury selection was scheduled to start tomorrow.
Right.
So this was, one of the last days you could reach a plea. I am actually a little bit surprised that we don't also have a deal from Ken Chesborough, who's the other person who's going to trial with her. But look, Chesborough has a better case in defense than she does. And I think Sidney Powell, she is a crazy person, but in this case behaved like a rational actor. Actually, she's going to get no jail time, only probation. She is, was facing potentially a very serious amount of time if she was convicted. She's not young, as she told the court today. She is 68, notwithstanding her extraordinarily youthful appearance, as she put it. And so I think that, they say there's nothing like a hanging to concentrate the mind. This is the judicial equivalent of that.
Okay.
And all this asks from her is an acknowledgement that she, in fact, did participate in the
illegal conspiracy.
Yes, to basically steal Coffee County's election data.
All right, so Ben, let's just play a little audio from the hearing that took place just a few minutes before you and I are having this conversation. This is from the Fulton County Courthouse. Let's play it.
And ma'am, do you understand that this is a negotiated plea, which means that your attorney and I have reached an agreement, or the state has reached an agreement as to the proposed sentence that will be made to the court?
I do.
Do you understand that the recommendation being made to the court as to this accusation on counts 1 through 6, that you be sentenced to 12 months of probation to run consecutive with one another?
I do.
Do you understand that the state is asking that a $6,000 fine be imposed, a restitution of $2,700 be paid to the state of Georgia, an apology letter be written to the citizens of the state of Georgia, that you truthfully testify at all hearings and proceedings and trials involving the co-defendants in this matter, and that you have no communication with co-defendants, media, or witnesses until this case has been completely closed against all defendants?
I do.
Okay, so
that was not the clip I was expecting you to play.
Okay.
The clip I was expecting you to play was Judge McAfee asking her whether the state's evidence would in fact prove what the state says it was, and she acknowledges that it would. And he asks her whether she's pleading guilty because she is in fact guilty, and she acknowledges that she is. Now, these are standard colloquy discussions in a plea hearing, but dramatic nonetheless when you're
not often you hear the Kraken acknowledge, yes, I am the Kraken and I am guilty. So the key there seems to be that you will testify truthfully in all of the cases. So how significant is this? What will Sidney Powell be able to testify to in terms of Fani Willis's overall case? Just put this into perspective to me. How big a deal is this?
Yeah, so I think it's a big deal along 3 separate axes. The first is that, Sidney Powell is in the room in the December 18th crazy meeting in the White House, right, in which, they talk about seizing voting machines and declaring martial law and making her special counsel, right? So, there is some direct interaction with Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani and company that she is immediately a party to, that she can testify to. And elsewhere in the hearing, by the way, there's a clip in which the prosecutor makes clear that they have had a proffer session with her, which means they know what she's able to testify to. So that's the first thing. The second thing is she could be, and probably is, pivotal to the whole Coffee County episode, which is not especially of national salience, but plays a very big role in the Fulton County indictment. And I think she, as a witness, is capable of really nailing that down and giving some inside color to it. Remember also that Scott Hall, the bail bondsman who pleaded guilty earlier, was also involved in that episode. And so I think with these two pleas, Fani Willis has really nailed down the Coffee County side of the thing.
Okay.
And then the third element, which is going to be less discussed upon, has been, not that, I mean, we're talking a few minutes, but she waives her Fifth Amendment rights here, and that has very big implications for the federal case.
This is what I was going to ask you next. Yes.
Because she has now is explicitly asked in this hearing whether she understands that she's waiving her Fifth Amendment right not to incriminate herself if and when she testifies, which means she must be anticipating some cooperation arrangement with the federal prosecutors, because she is likely to incriminate herself very deeply at the federal level. And it is pretty apparent anyway that that Jack Smith is not a party to this deal. So I think you have to now be looking for her to try to plead out at the federal level, where, of course, she has not yet been indicted.
So just to reiterate your point, one of the significant things about Sidney Powell is as crazy as she was in the room. She was in the White House. She was in that meeting in December. She can speak to what happened there. So again, this is potentially valuable for Jack Smith. Okay, so
and by the way, Jack Smith will not let her plead to she's an unindicted co-conspirator in the federal case against Trump. So far, they have not indicted anybody else. The feds will not take a misdemeanor plead out to this.
All right. So let's now shift to this election subversion case. Big news this week since you and I spoke. Judge Tanya Chutkan issued a gag order against Trump, barring him from making public comments targeting court staff, special counsel Jack Smith and his staff, and any potentially foreseeable witnesses. Chutkan ruled that his pretrial attacks threatened the integrity of the upcoming trial over charges related to his efforts to subvert the 2020 election. So the day after this, a couple of the days after, I've lost track of time now, after she issues this order in this case, Donald Trump goes out and attacks the New York Attorney General, who's involved in a completely separate case, and actually retweets a post from a white supremacist that actually includes Letitia James's home address. So just give me a sense of how this is going to play out. Donald Trump continues to test the judges, test the judicial system. Judge Chutkan has now made her order. Now she has to decide how she's going to enforce it, doesn't she?
Right. The order with respect to Judge Chutkan's case does not cover Letitia James.
Exactly.
So Trump here is either being lucky or being clever that he's not in violation of the order by endangering the life and safety of Letitia James. But these courts are in dialogue with one another rather explicitly. So when Chutkan was considering this motion, the Justice Department brought to her attention actions that Trump had taken with respect to the court clerk in the New York civil case, in which he had suggested that the court clerk was dating Chuck Schumer, which is, of course, nonsense. And so they are very aware of what he's doing in these other cases. And I would not be surprised at all if the New York case, where he also, by the way, has a gag order, or at least an order that somewhat limits his ability to do this stuff, takes notice of that in some ways. My guess is Judge Chutkan was extremely careful in her ruling the other day. She did not prevent him from attacking the city of Washington,
Right.
D.C. She did not, I thought, in a fashion that was pretty classy, she did not prevent him from talking about her. She did prevent him from talking about court staff or witnesses. And I think you will see him prod around the edges of that. He's not, like Sidney Powell, he's crazy, but he's not so crazy that he simply defies. He tries
Right.
to defy in ways that give him plausible deniability about things. I think the technical legal term is with Judge Chutkan on
No,
this.
I think so.
I think she's gonna police this order relatively carefully.
No, and I thought it was a very careful order. I mean, she did say that, Trump was prohibited from using words like deranged and thugs because he doesn't have carte blanche to implicitly encourage violence against, those who are just doing their job. And the term thug in her eyes could be a signal to his followers to do harm. But her order also included this language. I mean, Trump's going to go out and say, I'm gagged. Well, he's already said this. It's an attack on my First Amendment rights, disturbing. She wrote, "This order shall not be construed to prohibit defendant Trump from making statements criticizing the government generally, including the current administration or the Department of Justice, statements asserting the defendant is innocent of the charges against him," he can do that, "or that his prosecution is politically motivated," he can do that too, "or statements criticizing the campaign platforms or policies of defendant's current political rivals, such as former Vice President Pence." So she's kind of laying it out. Look, we're not preventing you from engaging in this kind of political speech. What we are we're narrowly targeting this to dangerous speech.
Correct. And to direct or couched calls for violence against court personnel, against witnesses, or against the special counsel's office. My colleague Heyman Hahn wrote an extremely detailed piece on Lawfare describing the hearing at which took place. It was a 2.5-hour hearing, and she really walked through it minute by minute. So for those who want to understand how Judge Chutkan, what the lines that she's drawing is, what she ruled for Trump on, and she did actually rule for Trump on some substantial matters. What the lines she's trying to draw is, what her reasoning is. I recommend Heyman's dispatch from I guess it was Monday or Tuesday. I can't remember which.
It is difficult even for people who follow this stuff to keep track of all of the trials. I do understand this. So there's also a lot of developments in this New York fraud case, not a criminal trial. Some interesting developments that may not have great significance. The judge actually had to tell Trump, to keep it down. He was like, talking and trying to say things during the testimony. And
it's boring to sit through a case that's taking away all your money. You get restless. It's anybody who's been with a 5-year-old at a show knows the sort of fidget urge that happens, and you gotta respect that.
So the testimony that I thought was the most interesting this week. Yesterday we had this professional appraiser who they have been citing. They're trying to say that, we didn't overvalue this property. We relied on his work. And this appraiser, who projected the value of 40 Wall Street, was back in 2015, was cross-examined. I mean, the Trump lawyers want to get this appraiser to admit that he undershot the projected value, but the guy's name is Doug Larson. He wouldn't agree. Trump was in the courtroom, threw up his hands in frustration. So the guy is basically saying, no, I gave you a legitimate valuation of this property. I said, what did he say? It was worth, $40 million, and you said it was worth, they wanted to say it was worth $200 million. So this seems significant because look, just valuing property can be a subjective thing, right? It's not a science. It's an art. People, you and I could disagree. Is your house worth $800,000 or worth $750,000? On the other hand, in this particular case, the prosecutors are trying. I mean, the prosecutors are trying to say we have evidence of intentional deception here. That you had professional hard data saying it was worth this, and you didn't just increase it by 10%. You just blew up the number by multiples. So this is kind of an important piece of evidence, an important witness, and you could tell that Donald Trump thought so. He was very annoyed by it.
Yeah. So look, we've talked about this issue before. There is a range of, you never know what something is really worth until you sell it.
Yeah.
And the
Right.
definition of value is what somebody is willing to pay for it.
That's all it is. Yeah.
And when an appraiser appraises something, what the appraiser is really doing is making an educated guess about what it could sell for. And that is, as you say, more art than science. When you lie about what an appraiser said, that is, if you're a professional appraiser and I say, how much is my diamond ring worth? And you say it is worth $10,000 and I list it as an asset as worth $100,000. That is not the art and science of appraising.
Right.
That is literally, you've had it appraised and then you have misrepresented the appraisal. And so that gets to be a little bit more objective, I think. And Trump knows that, and he knows what he's doing and what he's been doing for years and years. And he feels entitled to do it. He believes, I think probably sincerely, that everybody does it and that, anybody who doesn't do it is just a sucker.
Right.
But there are these people, who who don't behave that way. And let me give you one example from this world, which is, it has been reported by the New York Times and by reporter Mike Schmidt that, Jim Comey was audited by the IRS after his firing. And of course,
former FBI director. Yeah.
Former FBI director, disclosure, good friend of mine. I care about Jim. But when he was audited, according to Mike Schmidt, the IRS turned out to owe him some tiny small amount of money because, in fact, unlike Donald Trump, he does not cheat, right? And so, like now whether the audit was politically motivated or whether it was a random thing, I'm not going there. I am just saying there are these people who don't cheat, and that's mind-boggling to Trump. Who cheats and feels entitled to cheat. And so that's my, and I think when you turn the mirror on him on that it clearly causes him a lot of distress.
Well, I mean, and this is not just a kink that he has. This is really central to his entire philosophy of doing business. I mean, when he's written about this, he's spoken about how you exaggerate, you sell all of your successes. I mean, that's how he brazened his way through his various bankruptcies and everything. So this is very central to him, right?
Yes, and in fact, he's not ashamed of it at all.
No,
when Hillary Clinton accused him of it in one of their debates, that he doesn't pay taxes, he said in front of a national television audience while running for president, that makes me smart.
Right.
And so now you have a proceeding. It's not a criminal proceeding, but it is a proceeding that's worth a boatload of his money and his ability to do business, in which the court is assessing whether he considers the cheating that makes him smart to be, in fact, a basis for massive liability. And I think it causes him some genuine cognitive dissonance and distress because he's proud of himself about it.